All right, welcome everyone. It is 7 o'clock on November 29th, and we are here for a meeting of the Lower Merion School District Communications Committee. We are recording this meeting and it will be available for viewing. That being said, we follow all of our policies when it comes to distribution of recordings, and just want to share with those who might be joining who aren't district employees that that is a practice we have in place here. And so with that, I will turn it over to Amy. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to let people in and then I'm going to try to do a screen share.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Hey, Curry.
Okay, can y'all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, so um, wanted to start by sharing some of the ongoing projects of the School and Community Relations Committee. And of course, one of our big projects over the last couple of months has been onboarding Dr. Yanni, our new superintendent, and he has visited all of the schools and pretty much all of the grades. So you see some photos here. Um, Starting on the left, that's him meeting with local clergy, representatives of numerous denominations that are in the township. In the middle, on the top, I can't remember what grade that is, but they were awful cute. Um, and the
Fourth
top
grade.
right, that was an interview that he did with staffers from the Marionite, the Lower Marion High School newspaper. And the bottom left is him with someone from the Banner, which is the Harriton paper. And the bottom right, he's reading to some little ones. And I think that might have been kindergarten at Penguin. So it's been very fun getting to meet all those folks. And another initiative that's been part of that Dr. Yanni has brought on board is his podcast. So we have recorded one episode. The podcast is called Enter to Learn, and it is available on our website if you click on the superintendent's page. And you can listen to it. At this point, we're not putting it on like Spotify or iTunes. It's just available on our website. But people are listening to it. And his first guest was Ms. Shawana James Coles, our Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And they said they were going to go about 3 minutes and went about 11. It's really interesting, but it's very good. It's a good discussion. And we'll be doing, we're trying to get at least one a month done. Another ongoing projects that we have are some website updates. We've had a sleep and school start times page on the district website. We have added, this isn't animated, but if you go to the page, we've added a countdown clock that shows how many days, hours, minutes, and seconds there are until we begin our new start times in September 2024. And then we continue to update that page with additional documentation and resources as we move ahead in all of our logistical planning for the change in school start times in September. We've also added a page that was Dr. Yanni's idea called Making Practices Public. We've added an icon button to that on the home page. And on that page are easily accessible resources to a lot of the things that we talk about, but people may not necessarily know where to look for right away. So we have information up there now on mental health supports in the district, what restorative practices mean, information about field trips and residencies. And we just added another button today about the pathways for communication. And it's some really easy to follow charts that show you and show families, like if you're having an issue, who you call first, if you're not satisfied with that, who you call second. And there's links and phone numbers and emails all in that document, all in one place. And that's, again, in the Making Practices Public page. Another ongoing project we have is our Keep Kids Safe campaign, with which we have partnered with Lower Merion Township. The first episode that we posted in September was with Ms. Kimberly Frazier explaining CSTAG, which is the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines that we use whenever there is a threat incident that needs to be investigated in the district. And it's a quick 2-3 minute video where Ms. Frazier explains what CSTAG is, and then there are links to resource documents about the CSTAG process. We were expecting to put one up. I guess that one went up in October. We were expecting to put one up in November with Lower Merion Township Police, talking about how police respond to our schools. And it was scripted. And then Officer Swain, who's the community officer, I think had a little timeout with illness. And so we're going ahead, and next week we're recording our next episode, which will be with Mr. Dennis Witt from the school district, talking about the physical safety measures that we have in place in our schools. And again, it'll be just a quick 2-3 minute video that folks can watch, and then it links again to some resources. Ms. Sharrock, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on this, Amy. I can hold till the end if
Oh, go
if
ahead.
you're in the flow. Okay. I just wanted to follow up on the connection here with some of the parental concerns that were brought up about our relationship with LMPD and students having the opportunity to opt out of interactions and programs for that, and or not wanting their students. And so just wondered an update to that concern that was brought and how that intersects with this project, because I just don't know.
I'm going
I
to
can,
get either Dr.
yeah,
Yanni or Megan to
yeah.
talk to that, because that's kind of outside the communication scope.
I can speak to this, and I'm sure Ms. Schaefer will also share some information. So the concern was that police officers were spending some substantial time in our buildings. We surveyed each of our buildings through our principals to see how much time police were spending. Obviously, we want our local police to be familiar with the layout of the building, and we want some level of familiarity without them being, an ongoing presence. Right now, we're leveraging LMPD or with some of our safety and security work, but there's no there's no regular programming that students are getting right now via LMPD.
Okay, thank you.
And before we go off the slide, I just want to note that that video with Ms. Frazier, this was as of about a week and a half ago when I put together the presentation. It had 651 plays. So I think that shows that these videos are helpful to folks in trying to gain an understanding of what we're doing in the district. And we have a plan to do one a month throughout the school year. And hopefully we'll get the one that we're waiting on from the township to get up shortly.
Oh, me again.
Oh.
On that CSTAG, I think that's great. That there's been 651 plays. I also am wondering, and up the ladder of inference here, that might also be because of the amount of concerns we had in the spring last year about safety when there were some student concerns. And so I guess a question I would have is there a way for parents to give feedback or follow-up questions post the video to see if there's anything else we need to address post video to quell concerns or improve for the next round of videos?
We don't have something on there now, but we could certainly add, just a reminder of how to email the board and administration, which is in now that pathways document that we were discussing earlier with the communications pathways. That's in there, so that's an easy way for people to find out who to address concerns to. But we
Yeah,
could link back to that.
oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I wonder, since you're doing such intentional work, even like a feedback survey or something, if people have questions, because I don't know if it, or reach out to Dr. Yanni. It just seems like it might get more people engaged in it in a positive, proactive way prior to when there is a concern, since you've already proactively done it.
So one of the things, we've not talked publicly about this yet, but I'm going to start. We're going to advertise shortly. One of my goals this year is to do a state of the district presentation, really around our strategic plan and the progress we've made there. As a result of that, there will be some type of community survey, engaged partner survey to give feedback on a whole host of things. I'm always cognitive of survey fatigue, but that the way we structure that survey, we can certainly add a section so that safety, wellness, mental health, is embedded in that, and we'll be able to get some data and then as we think about future videos, if there's, really strong feedback from the community, we can be mindful of that as we make more videos.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the information on the school and on the Healthy Start Times page. This is part of sort of the marketing of the Start Times project. We had said at our last meeting that we were really going to push out information about the change in school start times until we got through the month of September, because we didn't want people to get confused with this year and next year. But now that we've gotten further into the school year, each month we're sharing a graphic with the HSA newsletter editors, and as you can see, they're themed. The November one had a turkey. The December one, which you'll start seeing soon, has a snowman on it. And it reinforces what the new start times will be. Each one will have like a little factoid about the importance of sleep, and we'll be adding other health and wellness related tips that can contribute to good sleep along with these. So they'll be rotated every month as new content, and then they also remind people that we have resources on the Sleep and School Start Time page. So as the school year goes on, we'll be ramping up sort of the marketing of the Start Times effort. And I was just discussing with Ms. Schaefer today, a Smart Start update with some of the logistical and policy work that's been going on in conjunction with this plan change, and making sure that members of the school community are aware of that. And then I've also started to discuss with my counterpart with the township ways that we can raise awareness throughout the township of this change as we get closer, because obviously there are going to be impacts on traffic patterns. We also need to speak to some, we have created already a list of sort of businesses and other organizations that serve our students that are going to be impacted by the start times, and a process for making them aware and reminding them, if they run a dance academy and they ordinarily start their classes for 8-year-old students at 4 p.m. If those students aren't getting out till 3:45, they may want to switch their classes for 7th grade students and their classes for 4th grade students, kind of thing. So we've already started some outreach, and we'll be following up with that, especially after the first of the year, as folks start planning their years for next year and their schedules. Carrie, there's the hand.
Thanks. So with the school start times page, does that have on it like FAQs? Because I do hear a lot of like the same questions over and over again, or the same kind of misconceptions around it. Like if high school kids start later, they'll actually just be on their phone up later, like, and there's evidence against it.
Yeah, there's a ton. There are FAQs, and then there's a whole nother page of resource documents that goes back and has all like the research that basically we have been adding onto and compiling for a decade. So people can do a really deep dive on that page, as well as the FAQs.
Thank you.
Another thing that's been ongoing is my department's partnership with our HR team, especially in supporting our recruitment efforts. So if you got the Clipper magazine at your house, you may have seen our bus driver ads. We had a half-page internal ad in the most recent Clipper that came out, and we've just redesigned that, and we're going to have the back page ad for the next several months, I think. And we also, this was an idea that came out of our transportation department, and we've designed these are actually business card type cards that we've given to our bus drivers and to anybody else who wants them, that has a link to our bus driver easy application page and information about the hourly wages and benefits. And these are so folks can have them and hand them out at church or at a community event. And they're just, they're business card size. So they're real easy to hold on to and hand out. And we've made them like bright yellow, like a school bus. So they're easy to see. And it was sort of a low cost, but convenient way of just continuing to get the word out about these. We also just got in today, it's actually due tomorrow, to the Inquirer, an ad that we've designed for our campaign with the Inquirer and Monster. And that goes beyond the bus driver hiring to the food service aides and school nurses and substitute school nurses. So we've done some design work for that advertising as well. This I actually have an update on, like, since I put this this slide together, but one of our projects coming out of the Achievement Imperative Task Force has been to improve our communications and engagement opportunities for families for whom English may not be a primary language. And so it's a need across the district, not just from the communications department, but also with student services, with the curriculum team as well. And so Ms. Moore, who's our contract specialist, has been brought in several different companies that do translation and interpretation work. And we've been interviewing them, asking questions, putting the information we've received from them in a rubric. And we're now at the point where we're analyzing the different companies and the different needs of the different departments to figure out how we want to handle that going forward. There's some different, like the student services has a need for their documents that are translated because they have personal information with them and they're very like legalese. They have some different things that they're concerned about with translation. We also have a need for live interpretation of spoken conversations. And then we have a need for translation of some sort of general public documents. Our website is translatable through Google Translate, but there are some forms that are frequently used that are not on the website per se, they're linked out to. And so we want to create translations of those in our 10 most used languages. But interestingly, and I'm very excited about this, so I'm going to go off script a little bit, but I attended a webinar yesterday on uses of AI in education, and someone mentioned something about translation, and my ears perked up because this has been an ongoing project. And so just for fun, I went into ChatGPT and I took our free lunch information waiver form, which is what families sign that allows us to share information so that in addition to receiving free and reduced lunch, they can get things like a reduced price on a yearbook and field trip fees waived and things like that. Um, and I copied the content of that form, put it into Chat GPT and said, can you create this form in Arabic? And the little thing spun for like 45 seconds and I got a document back in Arabic, which was great, except I had no idea what it said. Fortunately, this has been an ongoing project with Mr. Hussein in our nutritional services department. So I sent it to him. He reads Arabic and he got back to me right away, very excited. He said, this is a really good translation. It's much better than Google Translate. And so I was excited. So then today I did it again in Chinese and I sent it to some of our AITF volunteer translator group that we've compiled. And I sent it to 4 of our Chinese translators, the Chinese version, and 2 of them got back to me right away and said it looked great. It was just missing one checkbox because it actually retains the formatting as well, which is really interesting when it's using, non-Roman characters. And they were very excited about it as well. So I figured Chinese and Arabic are 2 of the harder languages that we need to translate into because they don't use the same alphabet. And if those translations are good, according to native speakers, I think this holds a lot of promise for us to use as a cost-effective translation source for these sort of public documents that are not absolutely, word for word legally binding, but are informational. And considering that the translation companies charge about 16 cents a word for each word in each language of a form, being able to generate these forms using AI for free seems like a good deal all around. So I'm excited to continue to experiment with that. And in the meantime, we've been working on sort of a list of those forms that are commonly used that we need. And we already have the data about our most spoken languages. So that'll be an ongoing project to then have all these forms available to our teachers and our social workers and our case managers and in a shared file so that they can say, here's the document you need in Mandarin and make sure that it gets to the family that needs it. So that's an exciting project. And then we also have a meeting next week with our volunteer translators and interpreters to brainstorm with them about other places besides school where we can reach our families that do not have English as a primary language. And so we've sent out a pre-survey to that meeting, and Dr. Gaudioso and I will be meeting with them to have this brainstorming session. We've been asked to ask them to think about that ahead of time. We'll look at the survey results and what they've put in, and then continue to discuss that at our meeting. So I'm excited about that work. I don't know if that came through. Maybe not as excited as Ms. Schaefer gets about policy, but this excites me. This is what I referred to. This is actually an infographic that I created with our ELD department, just to share out information about the different languages that are spoken in our schools, how many multilingual students we have, how many ELL students we have, and the different languages that are spoken in homes across the district. And just putting this together was eye-opening and really interesting, because I don't know that people really understand the lingual diversity that we have across the district, and these numbers are growing over time. And it's, you know, challenging and exciting at the same time, but it also points to why it's really important that we make this translation work, you know, an important priority going forward. I mean, an incredible number of students that are multilingual, which is super impressive. You should have gotten your newsletter at home. That was the fall community newsletter. Should have arrived in
Hold
your
on one
house prior to
second, Amy.
Thanksgiving. Yep.
Jill, you had a question related to what Ms. Buckman was sharing?
I did. Is that okay? Or I can wait till the end, but it was
No,
about the language.
It's good. Why don't we do it? Remember to state where you're from, even though we know where you're from.
Oh, shoot.
And your full name.
Jill Emily Altschuler.
Oh, there you go.
New one from Marion Station. Sorry, I was late. I was at Maroon Madness. Super fun. Left early for this meeting because communication is important. I think all of this, I missed the very beginning, obviously. So, but Amy, all of this sounds amazing. I love the infographic, and I don't know, it's exciting. In terms of the translation, and as part of the HSA, I've been really trying to figure out or confirm or whatever if all of our communications are reaching those families in a translatable way. And I'm not really sure. I know I've been in touch with, oh my God, I'm totally blanking. Hernandez? No. Lopez, Kristen Lopez. Sorry about that. And she's just way super busy. I'm like, I'm here if you need me. I'd love to make sure that, you know, your students' families are included. So is there a way we can be brought in to the work somehow to make sure in terms of inclusivity and belonging, that we can make sure they know about the HSA, they can feel a part of the HSA, they can participate if they want.
Jill, can I say
I
the
mean, I
question
know
back
that-
to you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the need I hear you saying, or the question is there a direct service and or support that the HSAs can access through the communications department to make sure that we're communicating with all families in the district?
I don't know. I guess so.
Okay.
I just want to make sure, you know, there is a way, a mode of making sure that our, you know, newsletters, our email, you know, grade level emails, welcome letters. I don't know if they're on sometimes on Facebook. If they're on Facebook, they probably have a way of translating whatever's on there. on our Facebook page. They're just,
Are you saying for all families, Jill, or you're saying for HSA communications that you all are doing?
for HSA communications that go out, like our ACEs
To
update.
families?
Is that,
Yes.
and if they feel comfortable reaching, like, I kind of want to introduce myself, you know, and just, I want them to feel wanted and included and a sense of belonging. And I don't know if, you know, I feel like that personal touch also, but I don't want to, I just don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get
No, it's a
access
great
to
point,
that.
like accessibility for our other school-based supports, parent or what have you. How are we activating some of the things you're doing, Amy, to be able to use those in other avenues?
Right. So I think those are the sorts of questions that we're putting out to our multilingual volunteers, because they are members of the communities that we're trying to reach. And so the questions that we were asking them, especially in our initial survey, were most of these folks have been here a few years and are kind of into things now, but the questions about what kind of information did you wish you knew when you first came here? What kind of resources can the district provide for you? What are the connections we can make? And so we want to hear from the folks. Like, I have ideas of what they may need, but I would rather hear from the folks that can tell me what their actual experience is. So that's that's part of our outreach through AITF and the Community Engagement Task Force. And that's what we're doing at our meeting coming up next week. In terms of translation, so the HSA communication vehicles are their own. And I know some of the HSAs use the membership toolkit and some use Constant Contact. I don't know what the translation tools of those things are. I think that's something that, whatever email thing the particular HSA is using is certainly worth exploring with them. But, I think we want to, that's why we're trying to reach out to the folks that have experience and are members of the communities we're trying to reach, to ask them how we can be helpful in helping them get that sense of belonging.
One of the things that we did at our ELD night in the spring, we had a huge turnout, which was amazing, but we had our HSAs from all of the schools there, right? And we had translators on site. The AITF group, with Amy, a part of that, did a really nice job recruiting volunteer translators. And so they were present too. But so we had a lot of different resources available for people to be able to connect throughout the school as part of that night, and that'll be something that happens again this year. So it's just one connection, but that's something as well that we did to try to connect our ELD families with the community.
I guess I'm just asking specifically, as like, especially in the high school level and not feeling that sense of connected, because we're less of a presence than I'd like to be, but then at elementary school, where it's like a lot of the activity that goes on, and the the interest level and the participation level drops and the opportunities drop. So I really would love for them. I don't feel like they don't even really, I don't know if they know about us. There's just like some sort of barrier. So anyway, I figured this might be the appropriate place to bring that up. And I don't know, obviously, if I'm communicating what I'm talking about very well. But it's just,
I guess when we have our brainstorming meeting with our volunteers next week, we can certainly ask them about, the connection to HSAs in the various schools. What we found when we had our initial meeting with them, we found some great information of things that were going on already that we as a school district didn't know about, that was very valuable within those communities. So there was a Chinese speaking woman whose kids were at Penn Win, and she had started her own WhatsApp group with other Chinese speaking parents, where she would say, hey, there was an email today from Mr. B about school photos. This is important. You want to do this.
that's awesome.
And so, I think that a lot of that messaging it's more helpful to come from a member of a community than from the school district or maybe even from an HSA itself, because people already have that feeling of connection with the person. And so that's why we're really hoping to build out this group of volunteer translators, and and they've already been an incredible resource. Like Dr. McGloin said, they came to the ice cream social, and we had buttons made up that said, "I speak, this language," in the language with the Building Belonging logo, and they were walking from table to table. And we had our Pocket Talk devices there to help those of us that didn't speak other languages communicate. And so the feeling I got personally just from the families at that ice cream social was all of that was like super appreciated by the families, that the district was doing this outreach, and they could put a name to a face. And the ELD team in particular, those staff members are incredibly close to their students and know their families very well, and they're really our frontline folks, and they also understand the district, and so they're really good at helping make those connections between families and resources. And we have another thing we did in the community engagement task force was provide community resource lists that we developed with community members on AITF to the counselors, to the ELD team. And so they have like whole lists at their fingertips about food insecurity and job placement and legal referrals, like all of that. So we have a bunch of folks that deal with the community as connectors. And we certainly have lots of room for growth in that area, but I think it's really important that we hear from members of the community what members of that community want and need, rather than us saying, "Oh, we're giving you this all the time," because what we want to give them may not be important.
Right. Well, I guess what it boils down to is I'd like to make sure they are getting our communication. They can do with it what they want. But if they do want to have a connection with the HSA in any way, shape, or form, even if it's asking a question or wanting to relay a concern or anything, I know they have the ELD teachers, but I just want to make sure, I guess, that they have that available, accessible.
Jill, why don't you take this is a great point you're raising here. Why don't you take this offline and get some follow-up context from other HSAs and how they might be navigating it at their individual schools. And then if there's additional supports or resources that you want to brainstorm with Amy or Dr. Yanni, we could follow up at a later time. Does that work?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks so much. Amy, you want to dive into the community newsletter?
Well, I was just going to say it got delivered, so you can dive into it
great.
if it's not in your recycling bin.
I saw it yet. It's not in my recycling bin, but I did not see it yet.
Okay, it was delivered it should have been delivered to all residential addresses in the township and Narberth Borough. I got mine before Thanksgiving. My admin, Ms. O'Hora, got hers before Thanksgiving. We got calls. One of the things that Mr. Lee had wanted on the front page was the information about the senior tax rebates. And we know a lot of seniors saw it because they started calling the business office. So that definitely got through to a lot of folks, and we were able to connect them with the information on the website and help them navigate that process a little bit. I know you like data, Ms. Shurak and Ms. Sonner. Dr. Sonner, this is for you, because I hate data. I'm a words person, but here we go. I pulled I thought these were sort of some interesting numbers. So we pulled up the first week that Dr. Yanni's podcast, Enter to Learn, was on the website, and it had 27 plays, and 37% of the folks listened to the whole thing. And the average play time was about 50%. But that was just the first week, and it continues to be promoted in the HSA newsletters. And we'll talk about it when we have our Ask the Superintendent this Sunday. And so I'm sure that Dr. Yanni's numbers are going to increase, and eventually he'll go viral, and no one will want to miss an Enter to Learn podcast. But I thought that was pretty good for just the first week it was on the site.
I will say, Ms. Buckman, just to let everyone know, we put it out to the high schools to come up with an intro for my podcast. And it looks like Harriton is going to be the winner. Kids wrote a little jingle, and it's being recorded with some voiceover. So on our next podcast, we'll have a formal opening.
Yeah.
I did want to share also that the podcast was actually discussed in my doctoral class, and it wasn't by me. Someone in my class heard the podcast and brought it up. So it's getting around.
Going viral. And I wanted to take a look because we spend a good amount of time in my department on our social media. And we post everything on our website, but we also then push the website posts out on social media. And so I pulled up some data from Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is new to us. We haven't even been on Instagram for a year. Facebook, we've had a presence for a while. But this is our reach from September 5th to November 20th. September 5th was when school started, so that's why I started then, because we're quieter in the summer. And our reach continues to trend upward on both Facebook and Instagram. As you can see, in that time period, we had over 100 Facebook and over 100 Instagram posts. And that shows you that our content is being seen by thousands of people, which it is great to hear, and the numbers go up, and we're pretty good about, you can go into the analytics, and if people have reacted to any of your posts, you can then invite them to become followers. And so we continue to grow our followers as well as our reach. And we post a lot of positive stories and information about students and what they're doing in the district. And so it's great to see that people are saying that. Curious about what our most popular posts were in that same time period. The top #1 post was about an alumna of Lower Merion High School who celebrated, I believe it was her 107th birthday or 103rd birthday. It was a lot of birthdays. And we shared information about her, and people just loved it. The second one, the Black Rock 8th grade orchestra, was played the Dancing on My Own song when the Phillies were in the playoffs, and that was a really, really popular post that was shared. And our welcome back, our first day of school photos are always really, really popular, and everybody loves seeing all the kids' faces on the first day. And then you can just see, but I mean, it's great to see that, pretty much any post we put up there, several thousand people see. And I think that it maintains people's, it makes them feel good about the district, and that's important. Upcoming
Evie,
project.
sorry,
Yeah.
going back. Are you working on a strategy for engagement and interaction with actual posts? So like, I understand the extrapolation is thousands of people, but the actual reactions are quite low for the amount of hours that you may be putting into curating these individual posts. So I'm just curious if there's a time or at a future meeting that's something that you would bring back about the strategy for engagement and interaction, or how much we're investing in this.
Yeah, I don't. So again, because most of what we post are positive stories, we don't do a lot of like polls and things like that, because I don't see a lot of ways to do that are primary of the school district's message, unless we're
I don't know what you mean
seeking.
by polls. I'm sorry.
Well, so a lot of ways people get engagement on social media are to ask, they'll do a poll like, should Dr. Yanni call a snow day tomorrow? I don't know. I have to think of something off the top of my head. So those are ways you can sort of boost engagement and prompt people to react. But for the most part, what we get likes and loves. Like, that's people clicking and saying, I really liked it, or I loved it. And then sharing. We don't have the shares on this screen.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like those are quite low for the number of folks in the district. So that's what I was curious about. Is there a strategy in your department, how this fits into how you're engaging with folks through a communication strategy to either spend less time here, more time here, have students take this on, or given the amount of effort it is for such low return?
Yeah. Well, I see, to me, having 3,000 pairs of eyeballs on something is not low return. That's
Well, that's
3,000.
reach. That's not actually, that's like reach versus reaction, you can like, you don't have any actual evidence.
Well, reach isn't impressions. Impressions is like eyeballs. Reach is eyeballs that actually, like, impressions is how many people may have seen it. Reach is people that actually saw it. So they may not necessarily hit like or love or thumbs
But
down.
isn't that, I'm sorry,
actually
someone else
saw it.
jump in here, or Curry, I think you've done some of this work too. Isn't reach just the number of people that scroll through, like anyone on Instagram or on Facebook? You can't actually determine that someone like went into the post unless there was a like reaction.
Yeah, and maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it was like exactly that, Anna. Like when you scroll by, that's reach. It's not like you sat and read everything. It doesn't have a count time, right, Amy? I didn't.
No, it doesn't have an engagement time on it, but most of our posts are not like our posts usually are quick. They're a sentence or two. They're not the deep dives. The deep dives we save for the website. So again, this is just, and to me, if someone is just scrolling through and they see that, you know, the Black Rock Orchestra played the fight song and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool, that's a positive to me. And then we know that the parents of those kids are sharing it out and things like that, and doing the reactions.
Amy, I'm sorry if I missed this. How many followers do we have?
That was on the,
Thanks.
yeah, so the followers are on the bottom graphic there. So those are followers of our pages. Again, Instagram's relatively new to us. And you can see it's mostly women.
I think even if they're scrolling past, we still have an increase, you know, thinking about my favorite negativity bias. Even if they're just scrolling through, like I know that I sometimes mindlessly scroll through things. We've all done it. And things that catch our attention, we may or may not like it. Especially, you know, sometimes we just are reading what's going on. But even with reach, you're saying even if they're scrolling past, we've increased 51 or 50%, even with just people that may just scroll, correct?
Right. And then what we do is when they do react, that's when we invite them to become followers of the page, and that makes us more likely to show up in their feeds.
And I will just say that I've seen personally, because I follow, there's stuff on I don't follow Instagram, but on Facebook, there's always something going on in Lower Marion, and it's throughout the day. Even during the holidays that we were home for Thanksgiving, there were things that were going up. And sometimes will respond. Sometimes I'm just speaking personally. Sometimes I don't. And then sometimes I'll share, like that person that turned 107. I was like mesmerized by that. So I shared that. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And then I think they had someone who interviewed that person, right? The person whose birthday it was. So I think it just depends on the person. But even with that, I think that you're getting more people to even just do sometimes the scrolling.
Yeah, I mean, that's good. I'm still back to my question. Just, are you actually, it sounds like the answer is no, that there's not actually a strategy for engagement and or using social media or social media avenues for a specific purpose other than to build goodwill and followers. So that's fine. The answer is no, it sounds like.
Our primary purpose is to share the good news stories of the district. We also, though, reinforce messaging that we send home directly to our families with social media. So that's it. To me, that's its secondary purpose. Like, we send direct communications to families, letters and all that all the time. But then this reinforces to the wider community the information that we feel like would be of interest to the wider community. Like, we don't use our social media as a way of communicating with our families primarily. It's more to create that sense of goodwill in the wider community.
And the schools, are they tracking theirs as well, Amy, because they post and share as well, individual schools?
Yeah, so there are a lot of sort of ancillary social media pages that, teachers have Instagram pages, clubs have Instagram pages. We follow each other and we'll post and things like that on Instagram, and we'll like the different clubs posts, and then they'll reshare our posts and things like that. I don't go that far into, because that would be a full-time job of just doing all that following and reposting, and we don't have the resources for that. But I just thought it was interesting, like, to me, you think about maybe people that email the district on a particular topic or come to a meeting and discuss something. Um, and then you take that dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen and then look at the numbers of people that are, oops, I lost my page. I'm going backwards. The number of people that are exposed to positive news about the district on a, you can see how many dates there are there. And I think it's important to keep as Ms. James Coles always talks about, the negativity bias, just continue to share those positive stories out there about the district.
I'm wondering, to Anna's point, is there a way that we could, when we post, just maybe say, click here if you like it? Would that help? I don't know. Is that cheesy? I don't.
Yeah, to me that's cheesy.
I don't even care how many likes we have. My question was literally just, what was the strategy and how were we using it as an engagement? I was just
trying to think, like, how do we know to your point of the reactions?
There's just like a lot more data cuts, and if it's just like a pet project to build goodwill, then like that's what it is. Let's just call it that.
Well, to me, that's the primary purpose of our social media, is to continue to make our community aware of good things going on in the district.
Then I would probably say just analyzing, if that's the goal, that's a great goal. But then I would probably say analyze what are the accounts, and start to do a little bit of what are the ones that worked really well and what's the significance of them. So like whenever we do a social media work, it's really looking at the day, the time, the likes, like all of those things, because it's great that you get likes, but you want to figure out why you got 450 likes compared to 108, and then leverage that again. And I do think Anna's point earlier, like, this is like a perfect project for the kids who are much more inclined to this. But like, I keep thinking of this, the story of the two men or not two, it was more than two, but the two Lower Merion students that came back and told the story of integrating the Ardmore school. Like, that's an Instagram story to me. Like, that would be a 3 to 5 slide Instagram story. And I think that would be brilliant to do around like National Integration Day, but other times during the years of like proud posts. That's an amazing story about the positivity of Lower Merion and the impact of our students making change in the world, but also then really fitting with the digital infrastructure and to see how they go. I think that's all really Anna's question is, this is great, but what's the strategy, and why what can we learn from it to then leverage things? I will say on another thing, people like the positivity, but at the end of the day, if you tell me when the kids get out at half day, because I can never goddamn remember what time it is I'm supposed to like be there for my kid, that would be amazing. Because like sometimes social media, and if you look at the parent groups on Facebook, that's what 90% of the questions are. What time do I have to pick up my kid today? And like, what's happening? So I would probably cross over the needs of in the community groups and the parent groups and what the needs are, because it's not all about happiness. It's also about the needs that the community needs to know about this. This is a great example of talking about like social media and, the tax rebate. It's not just elderly community members. It's also firefighters. That would be perfect on Instagram and Facebook. And also, again, is a super positive thing that the school district is doing for the community. So I don't think the positive is the hard thing to find. I think, and I will tell you as a parent telling me the times of dates and the bus changes and all that, that's like, I really love you when you do that. Give me the info. So just to wrap that up.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll continue to dive into these a little more. We do certainly, like, you'll notice, I don't know, you can see just the beginning, but you'll see how a lot of these posts are at 7 at night. See where it says like date published, and you can see all those 7s. That's because like that's an optimal time. We do look at when most people are scrolling, because that's information that they'll provide to us in the planner on the back end of the Meta Business Suite. So we do look at that and try to schedule things for times when people are most looking. We also try not to schedule things at the same time as each other and make sure, we spread posts out over a week and things like that. We did do the senior citizen tax rebate. We did share out through our social, and then Lower Merion Township, I asked them and they reshared it on their social. So we do informational stuff. We can certainly add more of those, like, don't forget to pick your kid up, it's half day, kinds of posts and schedule them. But that is also an example of the direct communication. I would rely more on like the newsletters going directly to people to remind them of that than taking a chance that they're scrolling on, Facebook at 11 when they have to be there at noon. But it certainly can
of
help
course.
add
I mean,
that in
the role of social is not to do that, even though most people get their news through social. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't knock it completely. Thank
there. And then just some upcoming things. Ms. James Coles and I are going to be presenting at the SAS Institute in State College in week after next on our Building Belonging campaign. And that's to folks from districts across the Commonwealth. And then my department is also coordinating our MLK Afternoon of Service, which will be the Friday before MLK Day, which is a half day of school and an in-service for staff at Harriton High School. This is an annual event that went away during COVID and came back last year, was very successful. We partner with all the school HSAs and a bunch of the organizations at the schools to provide hands-on community service projects appropriate for children to take part in, and families, kids come with parents and siblings, and I think I have almost a half dozen projects already. Should be pulling them together in the next 2 weeks so that we can start promoting it. We were already signed up with the Global Citizen MLK Day of Service in Philadelphia, so we should be getting our t-shirts to hand out. And it is an event that brings people together in, even though it's at a school, in a like very not school-y event. And kids from, all different schools get to work together, and our high school students do a great job of mentoring and volunteering the younger kids and helping them do crafts and sort toiletries or whatever, whatever the different projects are. And then it has a real benefit to numerous community organizations that are chosen by the school organizations and the HSAs. And it's one of those afternoons that, like, every year I'm like, oh my God, no one's going to come, and I get all nervous. And then it turns into this really, you feel really good at the end of the Friday afternoon when you go home and everybody's had a great time and kids have made new friends, and then there's community organizations that benefit. So really looking forward to that. We usually got some press coverage for it. So that's good as well. And then I'm going to ask questions, but I had to add these pictures on the last page. This actually apparently made the news today. We shared video with a couple of the television stations, but Mr. Ross at Kimwood, they had a pie. They made a competition out of their holiday pie sales, and they used proceeds to donate 40 pies to Neighbors Helping Neighbors, who then distributed them to families in need for their Thanksgiving boxes. And the grade that sold the most pies got the most opportunities to throw pies at Ty, the principal, Mr. Ross, and he was a super good sport and got pied in the face like 9 times in one assembly, including once by Dr. Yanni with help from a very adorable little kindergarten student who kind of pied him on the head instead of the face. But those were some action shots of the pies. So I will. That's all I got.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Are there questions from the community or other board members here tonight? Okay, Megan, do you know when the next one is? Or Amy, do you know? And
January, I want to say January 24th.
okay. Okay, so January 24th, we will be back
Yes,
here on
January
the
24th
Zoom
at 7.
at 7 p.m. And we look forward to seeing everyone again then. Have a good night.